What's pumping, guys? Today's video is going to be 3 tips on how skinny guys can gain muscle. The reason I decided to do this video is because I've not always been the biggest guy myself. I wouldn't consider myself huge now, but I'm a lot further from where I've started. So I started training at the age of 12. That was for mainly sports, but the past about 2.5 years is where I really dialed more into sort of strength training and like bodybuilding style training. So when I started doing that kind of training, I was about 65 kilograms, and as of yesterday, I'm now 90 kilograms. Not the heaviest I've been, but I feel I'm a bit leaner than the last time I was at 90 kilograms. So let's kick this off with the first tip. So tip number 1 is diet. I know you've all heard it before, skinny guy, eat more, eat more, eat more, but I'm going to go into a little bit more depth of what you should eat and how much you should eat. Okay, so everybody has their own basal metabolic rate, which means the amount of calories you should be eating at rest. So say you were in bed all day long doing nothing but breathing and your heart beating. That's your basal metabolic rate. So depending on your height, age, weight, gender, and a few other factors, that's going to determine how many calories you need a day. So for me, my basal metabolic rate is close to 3,000. I think last time I checked it was about 2,700, 2,800. And then you have to factor in all the little bits and bobs you do throughout the day. So even things like walking up and down the stairs, even eating burns calories, believe it or not. So you add those bits, and then on top of that, you got to remember, obviously you're watching this channel, so you're going to the gym or considering going to the gym. So you're going to add calories on top of there as well, because you'd be burning them at the gym. So all in all, when I started my first bulk, I was eating around 4,000 calories a day. That's probably on the sort of upper end of what I should have been eating to bulk anyway. But I feel like a dirty bulk is sort of a more beneficial than a clean bulk when you're at the beginning stages, just so you can pack on as much size as possible in the shortest amount of time. Whereas with a clean bulk, you're going to stay lean as you're doing it, but you're not going to be gaining the optimum amount of muscle when you do it. So I'd say to gain muscle, eat sort of 300 to 500 calories surplus of what your basal metabolic rate is. A good app to use if you're not 100% sure in terms of how many calories to eat and all those other things is an app called MyFitnessPal. That's what I used myself on my first bulk. And in my first bulk, I gained 17 kilograms in 1 year. So I went from 65 to 82 kilograms, and I stayed fairly lean throughout, and I was tracking using MyFitnessPal. Another misconception is that protein is king. When you're bulking, especially a hard gainer, you need to focus on your carbs. So when I did my bulk, I was on 500 grams of carbs a day and around 200 grams of protein. The benefit of having carbs is it's a lot easier to sort of digest than protein is, and also it's going to give you that kind of energy to do the actual training, whereas protein, a lot of it will be wasted because your body doesn't need super high amounts of protein, especially when you're a skinny guy. So I'd say focus on your carbs, and your 2 most important meals is your pre-workout meal and your post-workout meal. So high carbs and moderate protein in your pre-workout meal, high carbs, high protein in your post-workout meal. And so that brings us on to tip number 2. It's your training style. So I'm sure a lot of you have heard the hypertrophy rep range, so the range where you're gaining muscle is 8 to 12 reps. I feel like that is a good sort of area to be training in, but I would save that for when you've gained that sort of foundation of strength. So when you're first starting training, I'd say focus on your compound lifts, which is like your squat, your bench, your deadlift, your rows, overhead press, so things that are moving more than one joint at a time. So something like a bicep curl, you're only moving your elbow joint, and it's only working the small muscle, your bicep. Whereas doing something like a deadlift, you're working all the muscles throughout your legs and your back, even a little bit of your traps, a lot of your traps, a little bit of your biceps just on the holding part, you're working your forearms, and exercises like that, they're really going to help just put on mass overall. And another thing I'd say is lift heavy for low reps at the beginning. And that's really to just build that foundation of strength. Because if you think about it this way, you're not really going to be gaining much strength. Say you're doing 40 kg on the bench press and you're hitting it for 12 reps. It's going to be hard to progress onto the bigger weights. And as we know, bigger weights in terms equal bigger muscles to an extent. So I'd say try aim for sort of the 3 to 5 rep range on your compound lifts. On your isolation exercises, such as your bicep curls, your lateral raises, and all those other exercises, aim for the 8 to 12 rep range. But build that foundation of strength. And I'd say a good beginner sort of workout split would be sort of a 5x5 split. Do that on your compounds. So, example, for bench press, you're doing 60 kg, you want to do 5 sets of 5 reps. Give yourself a decent amount of rest in between each exercise. The way I like to do it is just whenever you feel you're ready. You're not training for endurance, you're training for strength and size. So just give your body a little bit of time to recover so you can actually lift the weight you're trying to lift instead of burning out after 1 or 2 reps. And another thing is, don't train too often when your body's not used to it. So what I mean by that is, don't go in the gym 7 days a week or even sometimes twice a day when you're at that starting phase, because your body's not used to it. You're going to send it into sort of a shock state and you're not going to be able to recover as fast as someone that's been training for a while and their body's used to it. So I would say the ideal number is anywhere between 4 to 6, but don't overdo it in the time you're in the gym as well. Up to an hour and a half is the max you should be spending in the gym. Do a sort of split like push-pull legs, where you do legs one day, chest, shoulders and triceps one day, and then back and biceps on the other day. And give yourself sort of like, the way I do it is 3 days on, 1 day off, and just keep repeating that cycle. Or you could do another split like the one I used to do, which was, it was chest and triceps, back and biceps, shoulders and traps, and then legs, and then skipping abs. But yeah, so I'd say try those sorts of things, and that brings us on to the last tip now. So the last tip I'd say is be consistent. That's gonna sort of make you progress more than any of the other tips will. Because if you follow those other tips I just gave you, but you're not consistent with it, you're gonna make no progress. You can be training badly but still being consistent, and you're gonna make some progress. But ideally, you use those first 2 tips and then be consistent on top of that. So that means no skipping meals, no skipping training, getting to sleep when you need to. And if you're not seeing the results, just keep pushing through, because the results will come. It's taken me, so I'm 18 years old now. I started training when I was 12. It's taken me 6 years to get where I am, although the first few years I wasn't very focused and I was mainly focusing on sports. As soon as I dialed in my training, within 1 year I gained 17 kilograms of muscle. So all about consistency, diet, training, and then you should be on the right tracks to gaining the size you really want to gain. Yeah, so that concludes the video. Hope you guys enjoyed. If there were any tips that helped you, give it a thumbs up. Share the video if you can. And follow my Instagram. It's at Simran Halate Fitness. I drop content on there kind of every other day. And if you have any other sort of video requests or any questions, give me a DM on there or comment on the video below. Okay, see you next time.